Hello and welcome to this week's Why Football podcast with me, Echizadoku, and Michael Dryden. This week, Dryden will be taking a look at Rangers, their financial troubles and administration in 2012, and we'll discuss their rise back to the top of SPL in recent seasons. Before we start, please follow us on Twitter at YFootball_ for our latest content. Please also follow and subscribe with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Acast for immediate access to future episodes. So, Dryden, how you doing?
I'm good. I wish I had more to say, but literally nothing was going on. So that's it, really. Going back to the Northeast soon for my birthday and my parents' birthday, so that's something to look forward to prior to the Christmas break. But I think we can all agree that lockdown in winter is going to be pretty terrible. London's in tier 2. Yeah, no, it's pretty depressing to start the podcast, but yeah. How are you doing, Chiz?
Yeah, I think what's more depressing is before we start the pod, Dryden thought for about 5 to 10 minutes about what to actually say he's been up to recently. And unfortunately, it wasn't
it's
a
that
lot.
minimal.
Yeah, it's that minimal. So I'm sorry to hear that, Dryden. Then nothing's going on with your life. Looking maybe to some reading, go on some walks.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Keep on trying new clothes, that fashion sense thing you're looking
at.
Yeah,
no.
Buy some new trainers. I think you need
mate.
You need to look into that. I've been off work this week, so I actually spent a lot of time on FIFA, which I've mentioned a lot on this pod. I went to the museum, British Natural History Museum.
Oh, really? How was it?
Filled with children that love dinosaurs, which was very annoying.
Right. Anything else apart from that you'd like to...
Went to Andy Warhol exhibition at the Tate. That was really good, actually. That was quite enjoyable. And yeah, that's pretty much my week. So, Dryden, why this topic?
So, Rangers have had an impressive start to this season, many people might know, and now appear to be once again challenging Celtic for the SPL title under the legend that is Steven Gerrard. As a result, I thought I would take us back to the fall of Rangers in 2012 and how they managed to resurge back to the SPL thereafter. So far this season, Rangers are unbeaten at the top of the SPL, winning 9 of their opening 11 games as we record this episode. And they defeated arch rivals Celtic 2-0 last Saturday in the first Old Firm game of the season. They've won all 3 of their Europa League qualifying games to date. They're now in the group stages. Including a 2-1 win against Galatasaray at Ibrox, and recently won 2-0 away to Standard Liège in the opening group stage game in the Europa League, with goals from Tavernier and Kemar Roof. Have you seen Roof's goal?
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I score goals like that all the time when I play FIFA, and in real life as well. Okay. But yeah, absolute banger.
It's the fact that there's basically a minute to go. He's got the ball. There's 3 players around him. He should really just knock it into into touch, far down the pitch.
Yep.
He's tried to then go, he's achieved going around the player, quite an audacious little flick. And then he's hit it with so much force that his body cannot physically hit that ball anymore because he's fell to the ground, propelled to the ground, and it just perfectly went over the keeper's head. It was unbelievable stuff. I didn't even realise he was there. He was at Anderlecht last season, having been at Leeds, and I thought he was quite well rated at Leeds, but seemingly since Bielsa came in, that's not the case.
Yeah, no. So yeah, back in Pearly Panthers in 2003, I did something similar.
You used to play for the Pearly Panthers, did you?
Yeah, did back very long time ago. Yeah,
huge outfit.
Very big indeed. So
putting the Old Firm rivalry into context, which is definitely something that'll come up in this podcast, talking about the SPL. Rangers have won the SPL on 54 occasions to Celtic's 51, which might surprise some given Celtic's recent dominance. The title changed hands frequently in the 2000s. Before Rangers won 3 in a row from 2009 to 2011. However, as we'll go on to, Rangers entered administration in February 2012, and the succeeding company had to enter the Scottish Third Division. So they are the same club, and it sparks some debate. They are the same club, but they have a different managing company because the old one went into liquidation, which we'll go into. Since that time, Celtic have won every single title, amassing 9 in a row, including the infamous treble success between 2017 and 2019, where they won the domestic treble 3 years in a row. So today, I'm going to briefly catalogue the fall and revival of Glasgow Rangers.
So Dryden, how did Rangers go from successive league titles to the Scottish Third Division?
So as I mentioned, the title was won fairly evenly by both teams in the 2000s, with Celtic edging Rangers 6-4 in titles. Everyone will probably remember that period in some way, shape or form. Players such as Henrik Larsson, Peter Lubbenkrans, who ended up at Newcastle, Shunsuke Nakamura, the guy with a wonderful left foot. I think he played left back. Dado Perso, and the kitman's favourite man, Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. I have no idea how good he is at football. However, I just always remember him because of his incredibly lengthy name. These are a few that I can remember amongst quite a number of foreign imports that seemed to play in the SPL at that time. Nakamura is actually still playing football in Japan at the age of 42.
Wow.
So going into we'll start our story at the 2007-2008 season. So going into that season, Celtic had just won back-to-back SPL titles under Gordon Strachan, and Walter Smith was back at Rangers in charge after a stint with the Scotland national team. He previously managed Rangers in the 90s, between 91 and 98. The squad that Smith inherited actually included a lot of young and future Premier League players, such as Charlie Adam, Alan Hutton, Stephen Naismith, Carlos Cuellar, Sunderland legend, and a 16-year-old John Fleck, who's currently playing in the Premier League with Sheffield United. I can't imagine Fleck was playing too many league games for Rangers at that point, but interesting to see his name crop up at that time. Thanks to Smith, Rangers' talented young squad and goals from the likes of Chris Boyd, Naismith and Kenny Miller, Rangers went on to win 3 titles in a row, including a Scottish Cup and 2 League Cups. The final title-winning squad also included the likes of Nikita Jelavic, who went on to play for Everton, of course, James Beattie, who was about 33 at this time, and El Hadji Diouf, who also was in his 30s. So quite the mix of experience and backgrounds enlisted by Walter Smith over that period. So with such a strong and diverse squad, it may have looked like a period of dominance was about to ensue. However, things off the pitch weren't quite so rosy. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Rangers regularly posted losses, and by 2009, it was alleged that Rangers owed between 25 million and 30 million to the Lloyds banking group. Rangers then entered a dispute known as the Big Tax Case with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the tax man or woman, as they're quite often referred to, regarding Rangers' use of employee benefit trusts. They are where an employer deposits money into a trust or the trust, which is paid out to the beneficiaries, i.e. the staff, the playing staff, in the form of tax-free loans, and is used in some contexts, I'm not an expert, as a form of tax avoidance. The Rangers chairman from 06 to 11, David Murray, said it allowed them to sign players that they could not otherwise have afforded, so a way of trying to get round tax in order to benefit the playing squad. Seemingly, this was done between 2001 and 2010, with a reported tax bill of over 50 million calculated at that time.
Yeah, so why do you have to be so extra and just say, Her Majesty's Revenue Customs? Just say HMRC. Why?
I had to think what it actually fully meant as well.
Well, thank you for letting everybody know
that
you know what it stands for. We did a podcast in FFP like 2 or so months ago, and cases like Rangers and Leeds are exactly kind of what came into place, where these clubs kind of rack up all this debt over a period of time and spend far beyond their means. And this is the consequence. It's kind of like the poster boy for why those regulations are brought in. And it's quite sad when you see clubs like Rangers just continuously do it and then obviously fall by the wayside, although they're back now.
Yes, they are. So in May 2011, Murray sold Rangers to Craig White for £1. White had allegedly promised to pay off the bank debt, settle a smaller case known as the Wee Tax Case, and invest money in the squad and stadium. White did this by borrowing 26.7 million against future season ticket sales from a firm known as Ticketus. However, and not too long after taking over, Rangers' financial crisis deepened. White failed to remit pay-as-you-earn tax and VAT amounts, and in February 2012, the Rangers Football Club PLC, the former company, entered administration before entering liquidation in October 2012.
I often think about how many clubs were struggling before COVID, not just with spending out of their means because there are regulations in place to do so, but just generally from maybe relegation or, fans not turning up to games, and how this pandemic could lead to many of these clubs falling the same way as Rangers. Their financial situation wasn't good prior and now is deepening. And I think in the coming months and years, we could potentially see a lot more clubs kind of suffer a similar sort of fate.
Absolutely.
So what happened next? How are Rangers still here today?
So HMRC made it clear that it would vote against a proposed company voluntary agreement for the existing Rangers company, meaning it would be liquidated. The business and assets of Rangers were sold to Sevco Scotland Limited, a company owned by a consortium led by Charles Green. Walter Smith had stepped down after the 2010-11 success with new manager Ali McCoist and a number of players willing to transfer across the new company. However, some first-team players, such as captain Stephen Davis, who's now back, Stephen Whittaker and Naismith, refused and became free agents. Green claimed he had purchased the players' contracts and registrations, so there was some dispute there, and ultimately a fee was actually agreed for Stephen Davis with Southampton. A consortium led by Walter Smith attempted to rival Green's bid and eventually offered a reported $6 million to buy the club, but this was turned down.
Yeah, it's always difficult when players don't really want to stick with a sinking ship for a tough time. Kind of reminds me of the Juve squad during the Calciopoli scandal.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought about it.
Because obviously the likes of, we had just sold Vieira to Juventus, and he left pretty quickly when they got relegated, as did a number of other players as well. And it's a shame that the key players, or some of the key players at Rangers, decided to follow suit as well.
So Rangers tried to get back into the SPL by transferring the assets, or Green did, to the new company. But this was rejected 10-1 by the SPL members, with only the old Rangers company voting in favour. On their no vote, Celtic stated that the integrity of the game was of paramount importance. So that's why they voted against it, interestingly.
Yeah, the Scottish League also voted 25-5 in favour of their demotion to the bottom division, which I find really interesting. Obviously, they would want that because you don't want a club to rack up loads of debt and then just be allowed back to where they were.
Absolutely, yeah.
But missing a club like Rangers, I would assume, impacts the SPL as a collective in terms of revenue, in terms of competition. So it is quite interesting. It'd be interesting to know the 5 clubs that voted for them against them being demoted to the bottom division.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument. I mean, people have talked, or they used to talk, I think, quite a long time ago about what would happen if Rangers and Celtic came into the Premier League, for example. How would they fare, or the Football League system? And then that also sparked a debate of, well, what would Scottish football look like without those two clubs? And I wonder if the other clubs actually would welcome that because it gives them a chance of actually, vying for the title, getting into Europe, or would have taken out that sheer number, or them two brands, or that sheer number of fans from that league, actually have a real bad impact on the domestic game in Scotland. So yeah, as you stated, the Scottish Football League voted to let the club join as an associate member and place Rangers in the 3rd division. The new company, Sevco Scotland, agreed to accept all conditions relating to the charges against Rangers FC of bringing the game into disrepute, including a 12-month transfer embargo, the payment of all outstanding fines and football debts, and agreement on broadcasting rights.
So how have Rangers bounced back?
A lot of Rangers' younger players stuck with the club when they moved down to the 3rd division, as did some first-team players such as Lee McCulloch, Lee Wallace and Maurice Edu. A number of free transfers were also brought in to supplement the squad, such as the experienced Kevin Carl, who's played for Sunderland, and Emilson Kribari, experienced Brazilian player. Rangers continued to play at Ibrox and recorded a crowd of 50,000 at the end of the season against Berwick Rangers. Ali McCoy stayed on as manager and Rangers won the 3rd division title in their first season. They went on to win the Scottish League 1 in the following season, again under McCoist.
Yeah, the thing about Ali McCoist and his time at Rangers, I kind of feel like he's been severely missed on a Question of Sport.
Great TV show.
Really good TV show. Ali McCoist is pretty funny on there. I don't know what he's up to now. He's always on TalkSport.
So after their successive promotions, Rangers found themselves in the Scottish Championship, which proved to be a sterner test, with Rangers finishing 3rd and McCoist leaving in December of that season. He resigned with the poor financial situation remaining at Rangers, and staff were cut and forced to leave, so he departed as well. He was replaced by Kenny McDowell on an interim basis, who was then replaced by Stuart McCall following poor results. At this time, the spectre that is Mike Ashley appeared as Rangers' financial situation worsened. He originally saw an 8.92% share in Rangers and then had his request to raise that figure to 29.9% rejected due to his interest in Newcastle United. There was a number of funding agreements with Sports Direct and Ashley in place over this period. In January 2015, Rangers fans protested against Mike Ashley's plan to secure a $10 million loan using the club stadium as security, citing skepticism over Ashley's intentions at the club. In the same month, on deadline day, Newcastle loaned 5 players to Rangers, including Haris Vukic and Kevin Mbabu, who I didn't realise was there, Ultimate Team extraordinaire.
He is indeed. A question on Mike Ashley for you, Dryden. What are your thoughts on him generally?
Brilliant person, brilliant entrepreneur, great football club owner. Has done brilliant things for Newcastle United. Now, on a serious note, I mean, I'm a Sunderland fan, but I want to see. I don't want to see Newcastle United excelling above Sunderland, but I do want to see them doing okay. And if we ever do get back to the Championship or to the Premier League, I'd like to be able to play against Newcastle in competitive games. So
yeah, so since then, actually, Rangers Association with Sports Director Mike Ashley is actually over. Mike, I think, sold his shares to Club 1872 in 2017, who I believe are a group of Rangers supporters. The Sports Direct shop at Ibrox, which I read quite recently, their contract ran out in the summer, so now also be replaced. So thankfully for all of the Rangers fans out there, there is no more links or ties to Big Mike Ashley.
So on the pitch, Rangers finally won promotion back to the SPL under McCall in the 2015-16 season and finished runners-up in the Scottish Cup after beating Celtic on penalties in the semi-final, the first all-firm derby for a while. Mark Warburton replaced McCall for Rangers' first season back in the top flight in 2016-17 season. They also brought in the likes of Joey Barton, Jordan Roster from Liverpool, and a man who needed no introduction, Nico Kranjčar.
Question on Nico Kranjčar, Dryden. Is he mercurial?
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers. A string of poor results eventually saw Warburton replaced by Pedro Caixinha. I think I pronounced that correctly. And Rangers would go on to finish third in their first season back in the SPL. He lasted until October during the 2017-18 season, replaced by Jimmy Nicholl as Rangers finished again in third. The 2018-19 season eventually saw the appointment of legend Steven Gerrard, who has finished second in his first 2 seasons, reaching the round of 16 in last season's Europa League and coming runner-up in the Scottish League Cup. So far, Gerrard has brought players such as Scott Arfield, Stephen Davis and Ryan Kent in from English clubs, with the likes of Alfredo Morelos, James Tavernier and Jermaine Defoe being some of the standout performers in this brief period under Gerrard. Rangers have continued to post losses though in recent years, a matter not helped by the coronavirus pandemic. As you mentioned earlier, Mike Ashley sold his entire Rangers shareholding to Club 1872 and Julian Woldhart in June 2017 after years of legal disputes. Dave King is the single largest shareholder with 25.58%, his affiliation with Rangers going back a number of years. So hopefully Rangers can put their off-the-field politics and financial issues which have plagued them for 10 years longer, behind them and focus on the rise of Rangers on the pitch under CVG.
Yeah, I think Rangers' return is really positive for the SPL. The lack of old firm derbies and general competition in the league, won't make it as enjoyable to watch. The last combined TV deal that they signed in 2018, which when Rangers were back in the SPL, saw a 20% increase in revenue, which is fantastic. But part of me thinks there's a wider question at hand here, which is whether the anti-competitive nature of a 2-team league is actually healthy for the SPL. Yeah. I guess you could argue that Rangers' return means it's going to be anti-competitive, but then was it competitive in their absence? It just meant that Celtic started doing trebles, which isn't very, fun or interesting to really watch. So I guess it's one of those things where it's going to return to what it was beforehand, but was it any better? Yes, it's better than what it's been recently, but overall it's still a big no. And then kind of as well, thinking what you said about focusing of the rise of Rangers and the CVG and can they get back to where they were? What's the ceiling? Like Rangers and Celtic, right? A good season for them is to win the treble ideally or the double or whatever and then have a big run in Europe. But is that it? As in what else can they really...
Yeah, and the fact that they neighbour with England and the Premier League being, largely renowned as the largest league in the world, if they become very good, it's almost like their success actually costs them more because if you become very successful in one particular season, you'll get your players picked off. I mean, someone like James Tavernier has been linked with the Premier League on countless occasions. Obviously, we had Moussa Dembele went across to Lyon and it's been playing Champions League football. And I think I wonder if we're going to see the same thing with Alfredo Morelos. Perhaps if he didn't get sent off every 3 games, that might have happened by now. But there is a ceiling because they will lose their players to other European leagues that are bigger and richer.
Yeah, Morelos was heavily linked with Lille in the summer, but they ended up signing Jonathan David. Yeah, and not just Jonathan David as well, but the best left back in British football, arguably world football, came from Celtic to Arsenal.
Right, okay.
Kieran
I wonder where you're going with that one.
Kieran Tierney as well, who is one of the best left backs.
Of all time.
Of all time. I didn't want to say it, but of all time. But yeah, you are right. There is kind of this ceiling which the better they get, they can't really keep hold of their best players. So Celtic are European champions, Rangers aren't, but how far can they really go? They can't get back to those heights ever again because, as you said, their teams get picked off. So it's kind of like, it's back to what it was before, but can it get any better?
We've seen a lot of talk recently about a European Super League, which that discussion doesn't often include the likes of Rangers and Celtic because they're not perceived in terms of on the playing side anyway as being elite. But the reason why the likes of United and Liverpool want to break out the Premier League is because they've outgrown it. And obviously Rangers and Celtic have arguably outgrown that league a long time ago. And so they probably wouldn't be in a discussion for a European Super League unless there was a tiered system of that. But I imagine they probably would favour something similar.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. And it's a good point, actually. In a European Super League world, I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers and Celtic joined the Premier League, but they're all massive hypotheticals.
Yeah.
That's it for this week. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you next week.